This weekend is WWE Crown Jewel, and normally I don't really put a whole lot of stock into these shows because it feels like kind of just like glorified house shows. There's not usually massive title changes, huge surprises. So it just kind of feels like they're usually come and go. But this year, it feels like WWE is putting a lot more emphasis on this show, making it its own standalone event. I don't know how successful I think the Crown Jewel Championship belt design is. That's something that the probably the less said the better. But I like the idea. I like the idea of having those champions have matches together. I mean, honestly, I'm used to that with like Survivor Series, so I think it's interesting to brand it out into its own whole show. It makes me wonder what kind of stuff they have planned outside of the traditional Survivor Series matches for that pay per view this month now. But we'll see. But like I said, it feels like they're putting a lot of emphasis onto this show, and obviously they usually do. But it's almost been to the detriment of everything else. Like obviously the professional wrestling storyline cycle that we all know is weeks of show like Raw, SmackDown, pay per view, started over again, and like that's how it's been for years and years, and basically every wrestling company is everything's building towards that pay per view. And with the last like month or so since this Crown Jewel event was announced with the Crown Jewel Championships, it's felt like they've been trying to build to two shows at the same time. They've been trying to plant the seeds to Survivor Series with things like the Bloodline versus the New Bloodline type of like match that's obviously being built towards. And then also we have this show to get to and then also we have this show to go through and to get to. So it's been a little lackluster, I think. I think it's just been a little bit too much. As a result, it's felt a little stilted to me. So it's just kind of felt like, okay, we're going through the motions. It's the same thing every week because we can't have huge swings and changes because we still have this pay per view going on. So, all that said, I think it's worth going through these matches, do a little preview, predictions, and all that, and then go from there and kind of see what happens. But I really think after this show is done, we will kick things into high gear towards Survivor Series. And I think it'll probably pick up a lot more than it has felt in recent weeks. So, Wikipedia order here. Here we go. We have first up, I don't think this is going to open the show. It'd be incredible if it did. Is Gunther versus Cody Rhodes in the singles match for the Crown Jewel Championship. This is the Raw champion versus the SmackDown champion. This has been great. I love seeing these guys go back and forth on the mic. I feel like Gunther gets more comfortable every time I see him talking. There was so long where it would be, so much of a team effort with Ludwig Kaiser doing all the talking and then have Gunther come in and say a couple things. But I really feel like he has really not come into his own because he was already great before. I just feel like every time he gets on the mic now, there's so much confidence that maybe wasn't always there. So I've really enjoyed this. I think this is probably shaping up to a Cody Rhodes loss because there's just so many factors that could interfere for him, like Kevin Owens, obviously that whole storyline going on. Randy Orton at some point probably going to turn as well. Then, on the Raw side, I look at it and I maybe Sami Zayn, who's been trying to get a match with Gunther. But it kind of feels like he's going to get pulled into the Bloodline stuff soon. So picking that feud back up doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I think this is going to be a Gunther win. I think it's going to be a great match, though. I think these two guys are going to be incredible together. It's like one of those matches that, like, yeah, I'm ready to see this. Like, I'm ready to see him wrestle Gunther. Next up, we have Liv Morgan and Nia Jax. Liv Morgan, the Raw Women's Champion. Nia Jax, SmackDown Women's Champion for the Women's Crown Jewel Championship, which is crazy to think about. Like, that alone is such a crazy sentence when you consider how it started when WWE first started doing these shows, where it was like, yeah, there's no women on the card because it's in Saudi Arabia. Like, it's crazy to think that we've come so far that now there is a women's championship belt for the Crown Jewel event. It's still like I don't love that they have this deal and they go do these shows twice, three times a year, but I'm impressed that they have gotten to this point. It's nice to have women's matches on these cards because they are, like I said, kind of an extension of PLEs. They're an extension of house shows, and so the prominent placement and having real superstars and real matches on this card is I think at least something that comes from these shows. So I think this is going to be I don't know. I, I like news came out earlier that Rhea Ripley was going to be out for an indefinite period of time with like a likely orbital bone injury. That's what they said after the NXT beatdown segment, but they haven't verified exactly what the actual injury is that she's going to miss time for. So I would have thought she shows up and costs Liv Morgan. I kind of like the whole Tiffany Stratton thing with Nia Jax. Like this feels truly like a toss up, but I'm going to say I think Nia Jax wins this one. I don't think they would go Raw wins both or SmackDown wins both. So I think Raw with Gunther gets the men's title, and then Nia Jax with SmackDown gets the women's title. And then it also kind of plays nicely into that Nia Jax, like this run that she has been on with Queen of the Ring, women's title, and now this. So I think this is going to be another good match, though. I think this is a low key going to be a good match because I think that Liv Morgan is the perfect type of person to put in the ring with Nia Jax. I think she'll bump like crazy, make her look like unstoppable, which, you know, it always kind of leads to a better match. So I'm going to say Nia Jax gets this one. Next, we have Seth Rollins taking on Bronson Reed in just a singles match. This is a blood feud at this point. This has gotten crazy. These guys fighting. This feels like, see, with these shows, it feels like at times like WWE isn't even booking all of them. Like there was that period in particular where they were like, we want to see Kane and the Undertaker wrestle DX. And those guys were like, none of us have wrestled in years. And they were like, well, here's an extra bag of money. And then all of them wrestled and it was a disaster. We want to see Goldberg. All right, here's Goldberg. Like, you know, like it just kind of feels like sometimes WWE isn't always making these shows or like completely like booking these how they want to book them. And that kind of with this one, it feels like what should happen is Bronson Reed should win. He has been booked extremely strong. He's been made to look like a monster. He put Seth Rollins on the shelf. He's had all of these incredible segments and moments. This kind of feels like a moment to give him a big win on a pay-per-view, and then you can run the match back again anyways. This is the type of feud, and the way that they've built it, you could go back to it at any point. I don't think you're going to need justification like, oh, Bronson screwed Seth or whatever, you know, cheated to win, whatever. I think Bronson Reed can win this, but I think knowing the shows and how these shows going to normally go, I think Seth Rollins wins, and then like Monday on Raw, we get Bronson attacking him again, and like we started over in like the main continuity, if you will. So I think Seth Rollins takes this one. Don't necessarily love it, don't necessarily agree with it, but I think Seth Rollins takes this one, and I think it's going to be a good match as well. Next up, we have Kevin Owens and Randy Orton in a singles match, and I think they've built this very nicely, very quickly. Kevin Owens on this downward spiral as a heel, pretty justified if you ask me as well. So I've really liked how they've done it. I still kind of think Randy Orton is the next shoe to drop in terms of like he's going to turn on Cody Rhodes at some point, but I think this will be a really good match. This feels like a Kevin Owens win as well, kind of the same thing though that applies to the last match where, you know, if they want Randy Orton to win, Randy Orton's going to win. So I think Kevin Owens should win and keep this like going, but if he loses, I could see WWE being able to like spin this as like part of his downward spiral then even further. So I'm going to say Randy Orton gets the win even if I'm not 100% like on board with it. Then the triple threat match for the US Championship, it's LA Knight defending against Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. This might be the match of the night. I'm really excited about this one. I think that these guys are going to be incredible together. Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, obviously, like I don't think people like there's no doubting how good those guys are together. I think adding LA Knight into the mix is going to just add just another layer of charisma, just an interesting wrinkle to it. I don't necessarily consider him as like high flying as those other guys, so it'll be an interesting base to kind of have to work with in these matches and to kind of switch up what they've been doing over this series. So we will see. I think this is probably going to be an LA Knight retention. I don't think they'll have the title change hands here in this show. Maybe, but I think there's another title that makes a little more sense to change here in a moment like this. So I'm going to say LA Knight retains, and then the next match with the title that I think might change hands is the women's tag team match, Fatal 4-Way, with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair defending against Damage Control, Metaphor, and Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. And The reason I think this might be more of an opportunity for a title change is the fact that it's a fatal four way. The champions don't have to get pinned. This is how they lost the title last time. Um, Keeps them strong, keeps them protected. I honestly kind of wouldn't be surprised to see the title get put on Metaphor, to see Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson get this, because they've been booked pretty regularly on the main roster so far, and it feels like they're pretty close to a call up. And they've looked really good in the segments and the time that they've had. So it wouldn't surprise me if the plan is to call them up and bring them up soon, to put the titles on them right away and have them come in like that and kind of build that status and that stature right out of the gate. So I'm going to take swing. I'm going to say Metaphor wins. I think it'll be a fun match. I don't know how long it'll be. Like, this feels like it might be one of those matches where, like, in 10 minutes or less, everyone gets their things in, and there we go. Crowd goes home happy. But I'm gonna go for the upset. I'm gonna say Metaphor here. And then finally, listed here as the main event, if you have not watched SmackDown yet, I don't think this is going to be too much of a surprise with the way things have been going. We have got Roman Reigns and Jimmy and Jey Uso taking on Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga. It is Bloodline versus Bloodline in a 6-man tag team match. I kind of was leaning towards Roman and Jimmy and Jay because it feels like they just got back together on tonight's pre-taped SmackDown. Spoilers, but also the spoilers were out last week. I saw it like as soon as the actual SmackDown ended. I was like, oh, that's good to know. But spoilers for that. I think that we're still building towards Survivor Series. And the way to do that is you have Tonga Loa interfere, cost the Bloodline, and then they're like, man, we got us back together and we still can't get over the hump. Like, what do we do? And then we get Sami Zayn back into the fold and we go full steam towards Survivor Series. That is what I would do. That is what I would hope to see. I would love to see the three of those guys and Sami Zayn back together again for another like mini run. It doesn't have to be long. I just kind of want to see it. Especially with this new dynamic with this new bloodline as well. So I think this is going to be Bloodline 2.0 getting the win in a surprising fashion. Due to interference or some sort of underhanded, even if the main bloodline, the original bloodline wins, this will probably end with the new bloodline beating them down. Like, I just think there's got to be something that like signifies, man, these guys got back together and they're still not able to take care of business, because like otherwise what's the point if they get back together and the three of them can beat the four of the new bloodline, like, and then next Friday comes and they get beat down at the end of the show. Like, it's just such a conflict. Like, it's such a clash. So I'm going to say New Bloodline wins and ends the show standing strong. And we go back to the drawing board for the OG Bloodline, and hopefully that means bringing Sami Zayn into the fold. And I think that's everything for Crown Jewel. These shows aren't exactly like wake up early, must watch every time. Like, there've been matches and things I've really been excited for, but these aren't always like must see in the moment events for me. So I'll probably watch some of it live while it's happening, probably watch the rest later on a replay. I'm not too sure, but I'm still, there's matches here that I'm excited to see. So if you're seeing this before the show, let me know what you're excited to see, what your thoughts are about these shows, what you expect from it. Or if you're seeing this after, let me know what matches you liked. Did anything live up to the hype? Was there something that disappointed more? Where do you see things going next, basically? Appreciate everyone watching. Thank you very much. Everyone, enjoy the show.